Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Today, as you all presumably saw, the Prime Minister of Pakistan made his address at the UN General Assembly, where he passionately pleaded the case for Pakistani victims of the current climate catastrophe, monster monsoons and flooding, and expressed the compounding nature of this tragedy, where on the one hand, in the immediate sense, we're faced with the devastation of the floods that has already affected 33 million people and left a third of the country underwater. And then going forward, how we see this tragedy becoming not only a climate catastrophe, but a health catastrophe, a health emergency, in fact, with waterborne diseases spreading across the affected area. And then, in addition to this, given the millions of acres of crop damage, we also fear food insecurity, and finally, the economic difficulties that will result from this devastation. A rough guesstimate of $30 billion of economic loss is what is being talked about at the moment. The Prime Minister called for global action and unity to confront climate change and advocated for addressing the issue of loss and damage. He then also talked about the situation in Afghanistan. In addition, he discussed quite passionately his desire to be at peace with our neighbors, pending, of course, them walking back from the unilateral, illegal actions of August 5th, 2019, the attempt to undermine the internationally disputed status of the region, followed by attempts to undermine the demographic nature of the only Muslim majority region under Indian control. Their attempts in violation of international law to change the Muslim majority into a minority in their own land. Pakistan is committed to supporting and helping the victims of this climate catastrophe in this initial rescue and relief phase. Going forward, as we confront reconstruction and rehabilitation, we hope to do so in a greener way. We hope to build back better, a more sustainable infrastructure, be it our irrigation infrastructure, be it our communication infrastructure, be it our agriculture infrastructure. We see the opportunity in this crisis for Pakistan to build back better in a more climate resilient manner. I thank you and look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you very much. Now we will open the floor for the questions. Ibtisam, you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Ibtisam Azim from Arabi Al Jadid newspaper. I want to follow up on your remarks at the beginning. You talked about call for action regarding the climate change and the situation that Pakistan faced lately with the flooding. So the first part of my question, how satisfied are you with the international community aid or reaction? And when you talk about call for action when it comes to climate change, could you please go more on that?
Sure. Thank you so much. First and foremost, I want to express our profound gratitude to the international community, and particularly as we're here at the United Nations, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who visited Pakistan immediately during the flooding, witnessed firsthand the apocalyptic scale of the devastations from these, what he calls a monster monsoon on steroids, and then having come back and become a true champion of the Pakistani victims of the floods. And you would have seen in his speech to the UN General Assembly, he advocated our cause. In the lobbies of the UN, you will see the displays that have been put up highlighting the devastating situation in Pakistan. As far as the international response is concerned, we're very appreciative of what has been announced so far, what has been pledged, and what various leaders have committed to do to help us going forward, not only with our rescue and relief, our reconstruction and rehabilitation, but also trying to mitigate some of the economic loss. My message in that context would be Pakistan and the Pakistani people didn't create this crisis that they are today falling victims of. Our global carbon output is 0.8%, but we are still amongst the 10 top climate stress countries on the planet. It is not the climate emission of the villages in Dadu, Kambar Shadadkot, Nasirabad, DG Khan, or DI Khan that created global warming. But these 33 million Pakistanis today are paying in the form of their lives and their livelihoods for the industrialization of bigger countries. And what we seek is not charity, not arms, not aid, but justice. Justice for our people and justice for other climate impacted countries, particularly the top 10 climate impacted countries, all of whose carbon output is insignificant. And as we see this as a global catastrophe, as a result of global actions, we believe that its solution should also be as a result of global action and coordination. And to that extent, we welcome the efforts of the UN Secretary General to create international consensus on loss and damage. Pakistan, as chair of the G77 and China, has also advocated for the inclusion of loss and damage on the COP27 agenda, and we brought this issue up at the COP meeting on the sidelines of the UN as well, and we're optimistic that there will be a healthy discussion of issues related to loss and damage at the upcoming COP.
Mr. Azim.
Yes, this is Azim Mian from Geo and Young Group of Newspapers. Mr. Foreign Minister, you and Prime Minister were here on a mission and to make the international community aware of the plight of the Pakistani victims of disaster. That has been accomplished everywhere. This has been mentioned by more than many speakers and the UN Secretary General. So that's one phase. But have you devised any kind of mechanism to materialize the promises or pledges being made by the international community? So far, I think 60 million out of 160 million announced has been done. So on your part, your government has got so many domestic problems as well, but what kind of mechanism has been materialized?
So as far
this aid reaches to the victims transparently, effectively, and in a very meaningful ways. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So as far as the 160 million initial flash appeal, I believe we've gone beyond that to 75% of our target, but actually there will be a renewed flash appeal given the size and scale of the damage. Actually, we're still in the rescue relief phase. We haven't entered into the rehabilitation phase. There's still large sections of the country not only underwater, but this water is steadily descending towards the sea, and as it does so, it engulfs and harms other areas. Once the water does truly recede, we will be able to get a more accurate damage needs assessment done. We're doing so in accordance with the World Bank to ensure accuracy, transparency, etc. Once we do have damage needs assessment, then everyone from the UN Secretary General to the President of France have offered to help us in order to galvanize the international community and to engage with international finance institutions to be able to overcome what is an incredibly overwhelming situation. as far as the aid received so far, as far as the pledges pledged so far, as far as the assistance given so far, it's all a drop in the ocean. 33 million people. That is more than the population of New York State that we're sitting in today. It is more than the population of many, many countries who were represented here today and spoke at the United Nations. So whatever we're doing, whatever the international community is doing so far, is just a drop in the ocean. And it will take us a long time to recover from this tragedy.
Thank you. Sue?
Hi, this is Dr. Xu with China Central Television. I have two questions. First, you just mentioned about a chain action by this flood. The flood leads to health crisis, and there might be a potential food crisis and the economic crisis. So where do you think is the weakest link you can break the chain, and how to do that? And the second question is concerning today's meeting, the G77 and China. The Secretary General, in his remarks, he said, and I quote, "The global financial system was created by rich countries to benefit rich countries. We need to balance the scales between developed and developing countries and create a new global financial system that benefits all." Do you agree with that? And how exactly, as the chair, as the president of G77 and China, would like to do with this?
So as far as the challenges that we're facing going forward, we're really taking them one at a time. And at the moment, while we're still battling with floodwaters, we really have to focus on rescue and relief and see how we can support those victims of this tragedy. Going forward, we have to have a comprehensive plan for reconstruction and rehabilitation based on the still to be completed damage needs assessment component. But that plan for rehabilitation and reconstruction is where we have to create the opportunity within this crisis. The world had to adapt, we had to mitigate, and we also have to adapt to the new realities of climate change. And the devastation that this flood has caused has given us, or will give us, the opportunity going forward to not only reconstruct, rehabilitate, and rebuild, but to do so in a better manner, to do so in a greener manner, to do so in a more climate resilient manner. As far as the UN Secretary General's comments on the international financial system, he was with me today at the G77 plus China group that Pakistan was chairing, where he reiterated his remarks, calling the international financial system morally bankrupt, and pointed to the fact that many African nations were not part at the forming of these institutions. Many former colonized nations were not free and a part of such institutional frameworks, and therefore he's given a call for us to reassess how the international financial frameworks work, and for them to do so in a more just manner going forward.
Ephraim?
Thank you so much, Mariam. Good to see you, Mr. Foreign Minister. I have a question on Afghanistan, if you don't mind. Your Prime Minister today mentioned that some work is being done on gender rights in Afghanistan, and in his speech, very quickly. We had Afghan women here in this very room a couple of weeks ago, and they seem to be feeling and thinking that the OIC is not doing enough to support their rights, and that the OIC has levers with the Taliban that they're not using to support the cause of women there. What's your response to that? And then as the chair of the OIC, and also as the son of the first Muslim woman to head a democratic government in the world, the late Benazir Bhutto, what's your message to Afghan women and to the Taliban regarding that issue? And then I have another question, if that's okay.
Just let me answer this one. So as far as the Prime Minister's speech is concerned, he did call on the government, or the interim government of Afghanistan to respect their citizens' rights regardless of gender, etc., if I'm correct. As far as the situation on education is concerned within Afghanistan, particularly female education is concerned in Afghanistan, while we recognize that there's primary education available to women and there's segregated tertiary education available to women, Pakistan, along with the rest of the international community, is waiting for the interim Afghanistan Afghan regime to implement secondary education for women as well. As far as my message to the women of Afghanistan and the women of the Muslim world, this I don't believe is an issue of the international community, or not just an issue of the international community. This should be an issue for the Muslim world, for the Muslim Ummah, and you're indeed correct, for the OIC as well. Because Islam is what first gave women their rights. Islam is what guarantees women their rights to participate within society and their right to education. So we expect not only Afghanistan but across the world for women to not only be guaranteed these rights, but these rights to be protected. I'm actually currently the chair of the Council of Foreign Ministers of the OIC, and I am trying before our chairmanship expires, God willing, to be able to hold an event under the auspices of the OIC to do with women's rights in Islam.
Mariam?
Sure.
As a delegation, I think it's the second Pakistani-American delegation that goes to Israel, and we haven't heard a comment from any governmental source in Pakistan on what that means. A lot of people are wondering, are we witnessing a new page in the relations between Israel and Pakistan? Are you ready for normalization? Can you restate your position towards Israel, please?
My foreign office has already issued a response to this accusation. Let me reiterate, absolutely not. Pakistan's position on the issue and the question of Palestine is clear and always has been. As far as these delegations are concerned, I believe that there's some sort of international NGOs that are sending people between countries or civilizations, as far as my information is concerned, and it's nothing to do with the government of Pakistan or the government of Pakistan's policy. But each time some of these NGOs set up these interfaith or interconnected events, it just so happens because either some of the people going are dual citizens of Pakistan or have some sort of connection in Pakistan. It's hyped up in social media as a component of our foreign policy, which it absolutely is not.
Thank you so much for doing this briefing today, and I'm sorry for the whole catastrophe situation in Pakistan. This is Mariam Ramadi from Afghanistan International. I have two questions for you. One is on Afghanistan, of course, as an Afghan woman and Afghan journalist, and one is on Iran. I'm going to start with Afghanistan. 1 year ago, when the Taliban took over Afghanistan, the Pakistan government was telling the international community to don't push Taliban, be patient with Taliban, and give them a little bit of time. 1 year has passed. The Taliban are behaving worse than they were before. Human rights, women's rights, and not to mention the situation at the border. They had many conflicts with Pakistani officials at the border. People have been killed there. What is the position of Pakistan on the Taliban and their behavior in the region and inside the Afghanistan right now? Has the position changed? Can you tell me about that?
So I think that all of us, everyone in the region, in the neighborhood, but also the international community, wants to see a peaceful, stable, prosperous Afghanistan where all citizens, regardless of gender, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of their various religious beliefs, enjoy the fundamental rights that all citizens across the world should enjoy. And as far as their quest, the interim government's quest to have their government recognized internationally, I believe it would be helpful for them in achieving this goal if they were to live up to their commitments, not only with the people of Afghanistan, the international community, but all of us in the region. Amongst those commitments are indeed the commitments on women's rights and women's education, the use of their soil, or sort of not to allow the use of their soil for terrorists to cross border terrorist activity and some sort of inclusive setup. While it has been a year, and I hear you that there is a lot of impatience about the progress being made so far, I'm still hopeful and will continue to engage in order to encourage that we do achieve those aims, because I believe it is not only in my interest, it's in the people of Afghanistan's interest that we do get there. I just want to go back to the issue of women's rights within Afghanistan. I understand that it has been a year, but along with the rights issue, we've also seen a deterioration of the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan and the economic situation in Afghanistan. We dread an economic collapse in Afghanistan. And my fear is that if the international community does not mobilize, does not live up to what the UN Secretary General has been saying about their commitments vis-a-vis the economy in Afghanistan, and we do see a complete and utter collapse of their economy, then like theocratic, autocratic regimes in the past, rather than an extension of rights for their citizens, we'll see a contraction of rights for their citizens. And that is why Pakistan and other countries continue to advocate not only for engagement, but also for a joint effort to ensure, in the greatest interest of the Afghan people, that we address the economically fragile situation in Afghanistan.
Thank you so much for that. I'm going to ask my second question, if you want.
We are short of time.
About Iran, I'm so sorry. This is an important issue. I'm sure Mahsa Amini's name rang a bell for you. A girl who was killed by morality police in the Islamic Republic of Iran. People are in the streets protesting. Women are leading these protests. What is your message to the government of Iran, who is suppressing these peaceful protests, and to women of Iran as an Islamic country, Pakistan, and the neighboring country to Iran? Thank you so much.
I think that the people of Iran have a long history of protests and democratic struggle. As far as this incredibly tragic incident that you're referring to, I did note that the Afghan, I believe it was the foreign minister, had announced that there would be an investigation into this incident, and I believe that we're looking forward to see the results of that. Thank you.
Iftikhar.
Mr. Foreign Minister, thank you for doing this briefing. And by the way, congratulations on your birthday.
Thank you.
So belated.
Thank you.
My question is to seek a clarification. You spoke about the upgrading of the UN flash appeal. And at the same time, there were reports that there will be a bonus conference. So, which is
So there's the upgrading of the UN flash appeal is necessary, given the drastic sort of increase in needs. The donors conference can only take place once you have a comprehensive damage needs assessment necessary and a complete dossier about the necessary actions that need to be taken. The damage needs assessment cannot be accurately completed until the flood waters truly recede. And if you were to visit areas of Dadu around Manshur Lake or other areas of the province of Sindh, there's still incredible amounts of flooding and damage. So as this water recedes, you will get a comprehensive damage needs assessment done, and we will be in a place to hold a donors conference, hopefully before the end of the year. A revision in the UN flash appeal was expected when we initially set out with the appeal, but we thought it was all the more important to go ahead when we were launching the initial appeal because of the desperation of the situation. Before the end of the year. The President Macron of France has very generously offered to host a conference for the flood affectees, and the UN Secretary General has also offered to co-host. So we're working on that, and I'll have more details for going forward.
Yes, please.
Hi, Mr. Foreign Minister. Michael Mathis with Agence France Presse, AFP. You spoke a little bit earlier about the international economic order and differences between the developing nations and richer countries. Given the the dire humanitarian crisis in Pakistan right now and the economic difficulties, what would you like to see in terms of any debt cancellation for Pakistan, and is there a mechanism for that? And
I don't
also,
think-
if I can ask,
Sure.
on climate change, does Pakistan want to see climate reparations by wealthy countries?
Okay,
Thanks.
so I think that when you start talking about debt cancellations, people start worrying about default. So let me first insist that Pakistan is nowhere near that default type situation. Two, as far as so- as far as cancellation of debt, that's not necessarily what we're seeking, but surely for immediate payments right now while we're going through this catastrophe, perhaps we'd be seeking a moratorium with our bilateral partners. In the context of debt and within the broader context of loss and damage, the UN Secretary General has made, I think, what is a compelling argument for the idea of debt swap. In the sense that where a developing country, particularly one like Pakistan, would trade their debt, and that instead of paying that debt to the country that was due, we'd use it to either spend on SGDs or, in our case, climate resilient infrastructure.
Martin?
Any other part of the question that I missed? No, so I think that the call for reparations is one that is being made, climate reparations, if it were, is a call being made by activists, not only in Pakistan, across South Asia, and all over the world. As far as diplomatically, politically, or as a representative of the government, we're not actively seeking climate reparations, but we do want to have a conversation about climate justice and how we can work together to address these issues. As far as reparations are concerned, I believe that no one has thus far been successful in achieving reparations, be it the various walks of life where reparations are being demanded. So I believe it's a tall ask and perhaps needs a lot more work on. In the immediate sort of now a more realistic conversation is one that's sort of colored by climate justice and something that we can perhaps achieve, moratoriums, debt swaps, and the rest.
We will take our last question because we started late. My apologies. Mr. Martin?
We've just
you-
answered
Martin.
Afghanistan. Your neighbor just
Mr.
we'll
Martin,
do it
you
again.
can
It's
have-
Okay, yeah. Sorry, Mr. Minister, thank you for the briefing. My question is, the reform of international financial system has been talked a lot about, also as the current general debate. So from your perspective as the chair of G77 and also the foreign minister of a developing country, what do you think are the specific steps that should be taken to start the ball rolling?
So I wouldn't be able to claim that this is our initiative or our push. This is definitely a suggestion or a topic that has been advocated and but under the leadership of the UN Secretary General. And in our G77 meeting earlier today, a couple of issues that he pointed out was one that, say, African countries or even countries sort of former colonies were not independent or free at the forming of this of our international system, and within that context is calling for reform. I don't imagine that this is something that would be an overnight reform. It would require extensive engagement and will take some time to achieve, but particularly within the G77 context, many of our member states are advocating for something.
Thank you very much. They are finishing because there's another press conference here, so we have to finish. Anwar Iqbal. So-
Thank you very much. What would be climate justice in Pakistan?
So, if a country's output or carbon output is 0.8%, but they're the 8th most climate stressed country in the planet, They've become the epicenter of extreme climate events. That, as the UN Secretary General said, we're not only drowning in floods, we're also drowning in debt. So climate justice would mean that those countries that we do enjoy relationships with, these larger industrialized, richer countries, whose industrialization has contributed far more to climate change than Pakistan, would engage with Pakistan in a sympathetic manner. Not only a sympathetic manner, I believe we can come up with win-win solutions where we can use the opportunities created by this crisis to for a green Marshall Plan or a green Silk Road in order to rebuild, but rebuild in a way that's climate resilient, that's greener, and that's more appropriate for the difficult times to come.
Thank you.
My mission, my message for the women of Afghanistan is that I am with you and I will always be with you. They should be allowed to go.
Islam, they always talking about Sharia law. Pakistan is our neighbor. Pakistan has influences to them. Mr. Sharif mentioned that Afghanistan is safe haven for terrorists. Why we suffer?
So as the
so many women, no delegation from Afghanistan, no women. I'm a woman, suffered woman from Afghanistan.
Absolutely,
You're our
ma'am.
neighbor. I interviewed your mother.
Really?
She was friend of mine. She
I
was
see.
wonderful, but we suffered. This is 40, 50 years that Afghan people.
Absolutely. I think that the government in Afghanistan will soon find that it is not wise to fight with the women of your own country.
Thank you
And the
very
women of Afghanistan are truly brave, resilient women. They've had to be too brave for far too long. But honestly, this is a topic that we don't give up on. This is something that we consistently engage with the interim Afghan regime. And while there is access to female education at the primary level or the tertiary level segregated education, we do hope to see the day that secondary education is also allowed for women and girls in Afghanistan. And we say it again and again and again that this is not an issue for the West. This is not an issue for America or the United Kingdom or the European Union. This is an issue for the Islamic world and Muslim women across the Islamic world who've been granted their rights by their religion, and we should not compromise on their rights.
I'll take last question, Shabir. Sir, last.
She's the boss. She's the boss.
Last question, Shabir. We are done. Okay.
यार मैं क्या करूं अब?
Shabir, you can have a last question, then we
tell me, who
will.
am I answering?
Can you please sit down?
Few words on your meeting with the Secretary.
We have to start the new.
Security and economic measures you intend to discuss when you discuss.
Once I've concluded our visit here to the United Nations, I will be making my way to DC for my bilateral engagement with the United States, and I look forward to meeting once again with Secretary Blinken. After that meeting, I shall share with you what we have
Thank you very
achieved.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
I have to
you
go
very
back to
much.
chair.